Everyone, let's have more news about the Miami Heat. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. The Los Angeles Lakers have shown interest in trading for Miami forward Andrew Wiggins, but the deal seems unrealistic due to the Heat's high asking price, Rui Hachimura, a first-round pick, and Dalton Knecht. Despite reports that the Los Angeles Lakers want to be active in the trade market and free agency, things have been relatively quiet so far. Still, one name that continues to surface is Miami Heat wing Andrew Wiggins. According to Anthony Irwin, the Lakers and Heat have held trade discussions centered around a potential swap of forwards Rui Hachimura and Wiggins. However, Jovan Bua has said this deal isn't realistic, especially given Miami's high asking price for the Canadian forward. I've heard the asking price for Miami was pretty high, Bua shared during a recent QA session. We're talking basically everything or close to everything that the Lakers could offer from a top asset standpoint, so I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Lakers are trading Rui, a first rounder, and Dalton Knecht for Andrew Wiggins. It's not fair value, it's not a realistic trade. I think Miami's playing hardball, and we'll see if they soften their stance. Meanwhile, the LA Lakers could find themselves in serious need of a wing if Dorian Finney-Smith leaves the team. According to Shams Charania of ESPN, DFS has declined his $15.4 million player option for the 2025-26 season and will enter free agency. Multiple contending teams are expected to pursue Finney-Smith when free agency opens Monday night, though a return to the Lakers remains possible, per the same report. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget.
Have to start today's video is Davion Mitchell. He re-signed on Saturday afternoon with a 2-year, $24 million deal, fully guaranteed. And I said it on yesterday's show, which is also why you need to subscribe so you can not miss that type of stuff. But I do like the re-signing. He was very deserved to return to Miami. He had a career 30-game stretch with the Heat. He's never played that good in his entire life. And I hope that he is going to continue to show that that is the player that he is, and that wasn't just some crazy 30-game sample size. Now, it remains to be seen if he will be the starting point guard for Miami or the backup change of pace guard. I like him almost in that backup change of pace role more. He's not the same as CJ McConnell, but I do view him in a similar light to where when he comes in off the bench, he can play 25, 30 minutes a night, which is what he did for Miami. But I think when you have the normal starting five and then he comes in fresh legs 5, 6 minutes into the game, or in those stints during the second quarter, and gives that 1,000% max effort, that is where he is most effective. So that remains to be seen, but that re-signing of Miami does put the Heat in a very tricky spot, because after that move, the Heat are now at the max 15 players that you can have on standard contracts. It's pretty crazy that they're already at 15, so heading into free agency, they really couldn't sign a single player unless they start waiving or trading players away. And that's the biggest rumors around Miami right now is, will they be able to trade Andrew Wiggins? Will they be able to trade Terry Rozier? What is happening with Duncan Robinson? He has to opt into his ETO to get $9.9 million guaranteed by 5 p.m. Eastern time today. If he does not opt into that, he would then become an unrestricted free agent, which could bring him back to Miami on a shorter term deal and a cheaper deal for the Heat, which I would be very much welcome to, because the Heat can't afford to lose shooting like Duncan Robinson at this juncture. But that $19.8 million that he would have guaranteed if the Heat do not move on from him by July 8th is just a little bit too much money at this time, even though it is an expiring deal. So I hope Duncan returns, but this is going to be an interesting day to see. Does he opt in? Then the Heat would have to make a choice. All right, we got to either find a trade partner in the next 10 days, or we just are going to flat out waive him and save $10 million. That will be probably the thing that I'm keeping my eye on the most here for Miami. But let me know your thoughts. Does Duncan Robinson stay with Miami this season? Type Y if you think he does. Type N if you think he does not. I am going to say he is ultimately with Miami, whether it is him just not getting traded, which I think would be a mistake, keeping him at $19 million, or if he ends up opting out and then the Heat and him kind of renegotiate a smaller, cheaper deal to keep him in Miami. I think both are fair options. All right, let's move on from Duncan Robinson now and talk about the latest around this team. And we'll start with Jonathan Kaminga, because he has obviously been one of the biggest free agents to be, restricted free agent from Golden State. And there's been a lot of reported interest from beat reporters and from national reporters about Miami being interested in him. They would have to pull off a sign and trade. Now, the interest from Miami's side has been kind of shot down here over the last 24 hours. Barry Jackson said the Heat are not pursuing Kaminga at this time. 5 Reasons Sports Network also said that their level of interest in Kaminga has been vastly overstated. And Anthony Chiang of the Miami Herald said that there is some level of interest in Kaminga, but the Heat are currently exploring other moves, and there has been no free agent meeting set between Miami and Kaminga. It's also being reported that the Sacramento Kings are a team that are heavily intrigued with the idea of adding Kaminga, so it's not like Miami would be able to pull off a sign and trade for the cheap. They would have to give Kaminga a contract and then figure out what a trade looks like from there. My projection would be more or less like a Kyle Anderson and Jaime Jaquez Jr. trade package, because remember, the Warriors could only take back 50% of the salary in Kaminga's first year. Those two players I just mentioned from Miami combined make $13 million. So if Kaminga gets any type of deal that is more than $26 million in that first season, it could be a descending contract, it could be an ascending contract, but as long as that first year is more than $26 million, I think Kyle Anderson and Jaime Jaquez Jr. would ultimately be the two players heading to Golden State in a sign and trade. We've talked a lot about if the Heat should do that, if I would be okay with that move. I would be okay with it because you're committing to that full youth movement. And your starting lineup would then be Yakachonis, Hero, Kaminga, Bam, and Ware, which is then 19 years of age, 25, 22. Bam's going to be 28 during the season. And then Kalal Ware, who is currently 21. So it's like you commit to the full youth movement. Like Bam is 28, and then a couple of years he'll be 30 in his natural prime. And you hope that those other players I mentioned in the starting lineup take the steps forward necessary, and one of them really develops, whether it is a Yakachonis or it's a Kalal Ware, to where you now have Bam at 30. Tyler Hero at 27, and then those other young cats at 24, 25, and you could compete for a title in a couple years. It would be a slow burn, but it is what I think the best way forward for Miami, because I do not see them landing a superstar max contract type of guy in 2026 free agency. And I know a lot of fans are holding out hope they would be able to do that. I just don't see someone coming available, and we have seen that free agency isn't the way to acquire people. It's all through trades and the draft. That's how you got to get superstars on your team. You got to draft well, and you got to make trades. Miami doesn't really make any trades, so it's got to be a draft, and you got to hope one of your two guys, whether it's the pick you just made in Yakachonis or the one you made 2 drafts ago in Kalal Ware, ultimately step it up. All right, so those are the latest rumors around Miami. Before we head out of here on today's show, I do want to look at some free agent targets here that I think Miami would be smart to go after. But I could also see Miami having interest. Now, I was going to originally have Nickeil Alexander-Walker on this list, one of my favorite free agents, the unrestricted guard that's 6'6", comes off the bench, shot 38% from 3 over the last 2 seasons, and defends at an extremely high level for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think he's going to get the full mid-level, non-taxpayer mid-level, so $14 million. And as we are currently sitting here with Miami, they are in the luxury tax, so they do not have access to that anymore. And like I mentioned, they also, they don't have any roster spots available, so they would have to make a trade to free up a spot or waive Duncan and then bring in NAW. But Mark Stein is also reporting that somehow, even though it's not technically legal, the two teams that are in the final stages of Nickeil Alexander-Walker discussions are the Detroit Pistons and Atlanta Hawks. Don't know how that's possible, but I tell you what, that would be an absolute excellent addition for both squads, because NAW would be a perfect backup guard or complementary piece to Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, and he would also be an awesome complementary piece or backup guard to Trae Young. So those two teams are in on him. I would like Miami to get interested, but they would have to pull off some other moves. So another couple free agents that I want to bring up, Luke Kennard, and I'll bring up Luke Cornett, two players that I think are going to get the taxpayer mid-level exception, which is around $5.1 million in salary. Luke Kennard is one of the best shooters in the NBA. And if the Heat ultimately move on from Duncan Robinson or trade him, I want the Heat to pursue Kevin or Luke Kennard, and that's my number one thing. The guy averaged 43% mark from beyond the arc last season. He was awesome, and he shot like 49% for the Clippers a couple years ago. And by the way, he's a career 43 3-point shooter. The guy is a sniper. Is he a good defender? No. And I do believe Duncan Robinson is the overall better basketball player, better playmaker as well. But if you are losing Duncan, I don't think there is a better sniper off the bench that you can replace him with than Luke Kennard. We also know Miami has some level of interest in bringing Alec Burks back, but as I mentioned, they would have to lose at least one roster spot before making that happen. So if we're going to see Miami make a lot of moves to the roster in the next week or so, it's more or less going to be via the trade market rather than free agency. And we're going to have to see some of those dominoes fall on the trade market before we make any signings here. Couple other free agents. I mentioned Luke Cornett. I think he would get $5 million. I would give him a 2-year, $10 million deal. I'm fine with that. Give him multi-year taxpayer mid-level because he is 7'2". He averaged 6 rebounds in a limited role last season. Also averaged 1.6 assists. Like, he has just got a good, strong feel for the game. He's also a pretty good shot blocker as well. He didn't have a huge role for Boston. He had a larger role than I think most people anticipated because of all the Porzingis missed games and stuff like that. But with Porzingis off their roster, with Neemias Queta really being the only center that they have right now, they did draft Amari Williams from Kentucky. But Al Horford's future's up in the air. I think they're going to prioritize bringing him back. But with Miami desperately needing a backup center to Kel'el Ware and Bam Adebayo, Luke Cornett is one of my favorite options, and we'll see if the Heat ultimately pursue him. Another couple big men that are interesting to me, Day'Ron Sharpe. He's a restricted free agent from Brooklyn. I think it's going to be a little bit hard to acquire him because he is a restricted free agent, and Brooklyn would be able to match any contract. But here's another fun name. I'll throw out Precious Achiuwa. I know, the player Miami drafted in 2020 with that 20th overall pick in front of Tyrese Maxey, but I wouldn't hate bringing him back in as your third big. I know he's more of like a 4 than a 5, but the Heat obviously liked him enough to draft him. He hasn't turned into a star by any means, and he's kind of a back end of the rotation guy, at least he was for the Knicks, but I mean, he's better than what the Heat have now at their backup spot. Like, no offense, but Kevin Love still being on this roster and taking up a spot is just an absolute joke, and I wish Miami didn't give him a 2-year contract last offseason. I was fine bringing back Kevin Love because he's an excellent leader and veteran, but he doesn't play. And he just takes up a roster spot at $4 million, and it's just super frustrating to me that we are missing out on potentially adding some real talent to this team because Kevin Love is on the roster. I'm going to round out this show with 3 more free agent targets here, but let me know who your top free agent target for Miami is. They obviously have to make a trade or waive players before they sign anyone, but let me know a player that you want down below. Last couple people I'll mention. I just briefly talked about Alec Burks, so we'll move on to 2 more. I think the Heat would be very much interested in trying to go after Bruce Brown. That's a player that they've showed interest in the past in free agency and in the trade market as well. He isn't unrestricted, and after a bad couple seasons since leaving Denver with the Toronto Raptors and the Indiana Pacers and then the New Orleans Pelicans, I think he would be able to be acquired on the cheap. So that's another player that very much well could get the taxpayer mid-level at $5 million. I just don't see him getting a lot of money considering he hasn't really done anything ever since he signed that lucrative 2 for $40 million deal with the Indiana Pacers coming off that championship that he won against the Miami Heat. The last player I'll mention is Amir Coffey, the guard/forward from the Los Angeles Clippers. I think he's put together a couple good seasons there in a limited role in LA. I don't think he would be that expensive. It would be under $8-9 million, so it could be the taxpayer mid-level at 5, could be 6 or 7 on a multi-year deal. But Amir Coffey, the left-handed guy, shot pretty well from 3 this past season, high 30%, and he can defend. He's a rebounder as well. Amir Coffey is a sneaky name that, like, it's not going to make headlines around the NBA that you signed Amir Coffey, but it would just be a very subtle, nice addition to your basketball team, and I think that is what the Heat should just be trying to do at this point. I don't think big swings are necessary. I would just like to figure out what we're doing with Duncan, Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier, move on.
News today, a little bit surprising, but Duncan Robinson has exercised his early termination on his contract, so the final years at $19.9 million with only 10 of that guaranteed. So essentially a last year that probably was just going to be $10 million. But Duncan Robinson has exercised that early termination, and is now a free agent. Duncan Robinson is free to sign with whomever he pleases. The first word that came out of this was that Duncan Robinson could look to re-sign with the Miami Heat on a multi-year deal. Maybe he decides to do something for 3 years, anywhere from $10 to $12 million, and is a Heat lifer and finishes things out, and that's the way that this will go. But it was interesting because it felt like very much this summer was a foregone conclusion. Oh, of course he's gonna at least take the $10 million guaranteed and will find a new job somewhere else, or he's going to be part of some trade and he can opt out, or the team can wipe away and he can be a free agent. None of that is going to be the case. He was not part of any trades, and he is in fact free to do whatever he wants. Now, he could come back with the Miami Heat. He could go look for a sign-and-trade opportunity elsewhere. He could find a place, maybe a place that has an exception, maybe find a place that has some cap space. But right now, it is in Duncan Robinson's court. And I got to be honest with you, there's probably part of that shouldn't be surprising, because I think if you're Duncan Robinson and you think about how much stuff has been yo-yoed with your Heat role over the last few years, starter, no man's land, on the bench, 6-man, you probably want to have some semblance of control. And so this gives him a little bit of that. I think that, people are looking at this and they think that there's a wink that he is going to come back. I don't know. I really don't know. If you are Duncan Robinson, I have no intel on this. I have no, I have no insight on this. But I see this move, and if I'm Duncan Robinson, I honestly feel like my time with the Miami Heat has probably come to an end. I feel like the way that his last Heat season ended, Eric Spoelstra puts him in the game for the first time, Game 4 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they are getting blown out by 47 points, and Duncan Robinson doesn't make his first appearance in the game until there's 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and he plays the entire fourth quarter. And Duncan Robinson has always been the good soldier like this, right? He will go play preseason games with a bunch of G Leaguers when he's an established veteran. He will never miss games. He's outside of a back injury, is just always keeping himself available and being a great example for a lot of those young guys. Obviously, he has molded himself from a D3 player all the way to one of the richest contracts for an undrafted player. So much good in his story. And there was just something about the way that unfolded that, for me personally, just didn't sit well. It just didn't sit well. This guy is a veteran. He is your all-time franchise leader in three-point shots. And I was like, man, that's when you're going to put him in? You're going to have him come into this game down 47 points. The series over, the season over. Duncan, go play out these last 14-plus minutes for us. And there was just something about that. I was like, man, if I was Duncan Robinson, I'd be like, you know what, dude? I think my time with this franchise has come to an end. And there's also got to be a part of him that, yeah, you want to know something? Maybe Duncan Robinson just loves it down here. He's built his professional life down here. He's gotten engaged down here. Maybe his family and loved ones love it down here. Maybe they like their roots down here. Maybe he doesn't want to go. And I understand it. Miami's awesome. Why would you want to? But you want to know something? Also a Northeast guy. Hell, maybe he looks at Brooklyn and is like, hey, I'm the next Joe Harris. I'm going to go do my podcast with Tommy Alter, and I'm going to go, put roots down there and have a new chapter in my life and be in a place where, like, wherever he goes, it's not like he doesn't have a skill set that's not going to be appreciated somewhere. He's one of the greatest shooters on the planet and is going to fit in seamlessly with somebody's offense, and probably there'll be some element of him that looks at it and is like, you want to know something? These guys came after me, and that was a sign of respect. And it wasn't, oh, that's just Dunks. He's going to appreciate it because he's the good soldier, and he's going to do whatever role we ask. Look, if he stays with the Heat, he'll probably still be that, because that's just the kind of professional Duncan Robinson is. But I also think that there's got to be some looking at him where he's like, do I want to finish this thing out, like it is going in a younger direction, sure, I could finish things out and I could hit threes blindfolded from Bam Adebayo the rest of my life because we got a chemistry like none other. But you look at even this team and you're like, all right, well, where is Duncan's role with this club, especially with them just drafting Kasparas Jakuponis? And you're probably thinking, hey, that kid's probably going to get some minutes. We talked about the rookie minutes with Spo. We did a video about this yesterday if you guys want to go check it out. But you look at it and you're like, all right, let's just say right now Wiggins is on the team. You got Davion, Tyler, Bam, Kalel, Wiggins, right? Even if Wiggins is gone, let's put Nico in the starting lineup. It's probably not going to be Duncan Robinson or Jaime Jaquez Jr., right? It's probably not going to be Duncan Robinson. Then you look at the bench and you got a young point guard who's probably going to get some playing time. You got Pelle Larsson, who's probably going to get some playing time. Whether Jaime's starting or not, probably going to get some playing time. Haywood Highsmith, Keyshawn Johnson. I mean, these are guys that I think that they probably expect a little bit more out of. Jovic, dude. And then you already have Alec Burks on the record saying that he not a thought in his mind otherwise. He wants to come back to the Miami Heat, so he provides some semblance of shooting when you need that kind of nuclear option. Showed last year he has the ability to be the pro's pro, can step in whenever you need him to, like Duncan Robinson is prone to do. So if I'm Duncan and I'm looking about this, I'm like, okay, I can come back and I can finish and I can play my entire career with the Heat, right? But if I sign a multi-year deal at $10 million, start the countdown of when they're going to want to trade me because they're going to probably look to do it, especially to get me off the books. And that takes the control of my career out of my hands. And maybe he's super happy with that and he doesn't care. He just wants to live in Miami or at least put roots down here and this is where he wants to be. I don't know. Or you can go see who's going to roll out the red carpet for you. To me, Duncan Robinson being able to get $10 million a year seems like an absolute layup, or for him an open three. Like it seems to me like it's an easy one for him to get that kind of money. That doesn't seem like a real reach for him to get that kind of a contract. So you're talking about 2 years, 20. If you were just to get back the guarantee of what this year was supposed to be, at the very least, no one's going to offer that for a guy who can shoot the lights out, can fit into any offense seamlessly, is no drama. I just think that seems like if your agent can't get you that and you're Duncan Robinson, you should fire that guy because it seems like every team under the association banner would pretty much sign up for that. So I don't know, man. Maybe I'm all wrong, and maybe I'm looking at this the right direction. I know that the majority of people come out immediately, and they're thinking to themselves, "Oh, he's gonna re-up with the Heat." Stylong. I'm like, I don't know. You look at the timeline, and even for both parties, like, look, if you're the Heat, like, I get it. You don't have a ton of guys who could light it up like Tyler Hero does. Maybe you're starting to believe that Nikola Jovic is starting to turn into that shooter, and so you get a little bit more pop there. You're going to get Alec Burks on the cheap skis. Who knows what Jakuponis is going to be? Started off his college career a pretty good shooter, but they feel confident in it, but his numbers didn't end fantastic. Maybe Pelle Larsson greatly improves. Forgot about Terry Rozier. He's also on the roster, and you would think like if he's going to come back, it's not like he's going to get no minutes. And if I'm just Duncan Robinson, I'm like, what I'm looking for in my 30s is clarity, right? I'm looking for clarity. I'm looking for a role that is consistent. I'm looking for I'm looking for what Max Strus got from the Cavaliers, where it's like, hey, I know that they're going to rely on me. I know that they're going to lean into me. I know that they're going to want me there. And I know that there may be like a Heat role player scarlet letter, but this guy's so established and has been doing it for so long. I feel like someone's gonna roll the dice on him and be like, oh, this guy's gonna be amazing for us. So no, man, when I saw that he was becoming a free agent, I could be dead ass stupid. This could be solved by tomorrow and he could be back with the Heat and I will be tremendously happy. That's awesome for Duncan. But the way that last season ended, the way that the last couple of years have gone, where he's at in his career, the depth chart of the Miami Heat, I don't know. It just feels like if I was him, I'd be like, I could definitely find a place that's going to appreciate me a little bit more not only just in money, but in role. That's probably maybe even makes a little bit more sense for where my career's at, and be good with it, because this has been a hell of a run. You talk about being able to do something that he's been able to do in his franchise, in his history, and get to the top of the Heat leaderboard and been part of some incredible runs. A lot to be proud of in his Miami Heat career. Like an unbelievable Miami Heat career run. But I don't know, when this decision went down today, to me, my first reaction was like, oh, that's because he wants to control a little part of his career right now and is probably looking for a fresh start. I may look dumb on this. It may be, he may sign a 3-year deal with Miami tomorrow, but I don't know. Something about this was like that spoke to me. Like Duncan Robinson was looking for something new and looking for another chapter. And we'll see. We'll see how it all unfolds. But I don't know. My initial reaction to it was this felt like the end of Duncan Robinson's Heat career, just because, he probably is like, sees the writing on the wall, is sick of it, and is like, you know what? I think I'm ready to see if anybody else will appreciate me and give me a more steady role for the same amount of pay, or even maybe more money. There might be exception money that's out there. There may be a sign and trade that's out there. Everybody, you think about people who are looking to put, shooting around their stars.
Get to leave a like. With free agency kicking off in a bit over 30 hours, let's round up some relevant Bucks rumors coming across the wires this weekend. We'll start with players who aren't currently with the team, who perhaps might join via trade or signing. And the first one is a name longtime Bucks fans have long thought about: Andrew Wiggins. Since going first overall in the 2014 draft to Cleveland, traded not long after to Minnesota, he's been a what-if story. Had Milwaukee won the lottery that season, instead of finishing second and taking Jabari Parker, whose promising career was sadly derailed by 2 catastrophic knee injuries, they likely would have taken the 2015 Rookie of the Year. What might have been. Since then, he hasn't been a star, but he had a huge NBA Finals in 2022 with Golden State and earned himself a much more reasonable contract after his rookie scale extension at the max ended up pretty unfavorable. That made him a long-discussed trade chip for the Dubs, and sure enough, he found himself on the move to Miami in the Jimmy Butler trade. He was a solid fit with Miami, posting 19.0 PPG, 4.2 RPG, and 3.3 APG on 458, 360.731 shooting. Typical production for him. But the Heat are always star hunting, and while they missed, like they usually do, on Kevin Durant, Wiggins' contract again looks very movable. Enter the Bucks, who reportedly are interested in Wiggins, per Clutch Points Brett Siegel. Heat GM Pat Riley has apparently put Wiggins on the trade block, and the Bucks have a level of interest. It's almost certain that to acquire the 30-year-old, Milwaukee would have to send out Kyle Kuzma in the same trade, either to Miami or elsewhere. Kuzma is 5 months younger than Wiggins, but there is obviously a gulf between the players talent-wise. And you, fan, what do you think about Andrew Wiggins' situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.